Hey everyone, welcome back to Down Periscope, Up Periscope, Tales of Submarine Tours. Well, today we're going to be talking about answering the call of nature on a submarine. Now, I have made a podcast episode of this as well as a blog post, so I will put the links down in the description if you want, but I figured, why not just show you what it is? So, I'm here in the enlisted man's head, or the toilet, as landlubbers call them. We've got 4 heads in this room for 77 enlisted sailors living on this deck here to share. We are in a forward space of the submarine. Just directly ahead of me is actually the torpedo room. But let me show you what a head on a submarine looks like. Voila. Unfortunately, someone forgot to fill the holder with the toilet paper again, so anyway. So this is the space for the heads. Yep, there's the passageway. Now, here's the thing. How do you use a toilet on a submarine? They say a toilet's a pretty simple thing. Well, that might be true on land, but on a submarine, there's a few more steps involved. So let me describe it. This toilet actually uses seawater to flush it, so here's how it works. First of all, there's a sign right there saying leave a water seal in urinal after flushing. Before you answer the call of nature, you're going to make sure there's a little bit of water in the bowl down there because it needs to form a water seal. You're going to do your business, and then this handle right here, which is actually locked, I can't move it, connects to the valve at the bottom of the bowl. That's actually a ball valve. So right now it's closed. But when you pull up that handle, that's going to rotate the valve open. And it'll open down into a tank beneath it called the Collection, Holding, and Transfer, CHT, or sanitary tank as it's called. When you've opened up that valve, you're going to open up the seawater valve right up there and flush the bowl. Then once it's flushed, you close that handle, closing the valve. And then you close the seawater valve there, leaving just a little bit of water to form a water seal in it. All right, well, that seems simple enough, sure. So that's how you use the toilet on a submarine. Now, here's the thing. The sanitary tank beneath this is not infinite, okay? It does eventually get full, and that needs to be emptied every so often. So, every so often, like every couple of days or whatever, signs like this will be hung showing you that they are blowing the sanitary tanks beneath these heads. Now, what does that mean? Well, we are underwater, a submarine is, okay? And you need to pressurize the sanitary tank beneath those heads to a pressure greater than the outside ambient water pressure. So let's say we're at like 100 feet below the water. That's like basically 4 atmospheres of pressure. So roughly, it's a little under 60 pounds per square inch of pressure. So you're going to pressurize that water tank beneath the sanitary tank beneath the heads to a pressure greater than the outside. And actually the valve to pressurize these tanks is here. Yep, there's actually instructions right here for pressurizing the sanitary tanks. So you're going to pressurize that tank and blow the sewage overboard. Oh, and one thing I should also mention is that even after we've pressurized the sanitary tanks beneath those toilets there, here's the thing. We've blown the sanitary, but there's still air in there, and we're not going to discharge that extra air overboard. We are going to bleed that air back into the submarine. So yes, air is going to probably be bubbling up from the toilets, and it smells. It smells like sewage. So you get this nice, lovely aroma of poop and everything else in that sanitary tank from the air that's coming out of here. So yes, that air from that sanitary tank gets bled back into the submarine, combining with all the other things like body odor and food and diesel fuel and oils and lubricants and hydraulic fluid and so on. So yes, what a lovely smell of being a sailor. It has a very unique odor to it. Now, some absent-minded sailors may forget to hang those signs, or inevitably, more likely, someone's going to stumble out of bed, right out of the rack, and they need to use the bathroom. So they come on in here, they probably just go right past those signs and they sit on the toilet. You now are going to have a bit of a problem, because when you do your thing and you lift up that handle to open up that valve at the bottom of the bowl to flush it, you have now created an opening for pressurized sewage to shoot up at you. And you are now stuck cleaning up that mess you made. Now, a couple of stories related to this. So, first of all, old school submarine sailors, almost everybody has seen that or heard that happen, because when you open up that valve and that tank is pressurized beneath it, the sudden change will create a noticeable bang from the air pressure. And everybody nearby knows exactly just what happens. Like, someone blew the head again. Yep, and yep, it's gross. So, yeah, that's what happens. You get stuck cleaning up the sewage mess that you made all over the place. That is basically blowing the sanitary. Fun stuff. Now we have another story here. A former tour guide who worked on this submarine said when he was a young whippersnapper, a young sailor, he was on an old diesel electric submarine. And here's the thing. Before you charge that airline, you need to close all of the valves to everything else that drains into those tanks. It's not just the heads, the toilets here. That includes things like the showers, right over there, or the ice machine, and so on. Well, he followed instructions and he thought he closed those valves, but here's the thing. This was an old diesel electric submarine and the valves were kind of sticky. So he closed them like he did, but in reality, he did not actually close those valves. What he should have done was close the valves, turn the handle open a little bit again, and then close it again to make sure that the valve actually fully closed and pressurize those sanitary tanks. But like I said, he did not actually close the valves. When he pressurized that airline to pressurize the sanitary tank, he ended up blowing a fountain of sewage back into the showers, I think including the officer's shower, as well as the ice machine. And he had to clean that up. Needless to say, he was not the most popular sailor on the submarine for that day. And nobody used the ice machine anymore for that patrol, even though he had cleaned it. Isn't that a lovely story? Now, the use of this method of blowing a sanitary tank and blowing the waste out to sea, I think you can do it like anywhere greater than like 3 nautical miles out at sea. You can blow a tank, but it was not always like that. That's what US and a lot of British submarines used. The German submarines, the U-boats in World War II, had to come up with a solution for blowing a sanitary tank at depth. So, and they, being German, they engineered the problem to death and created a very complex system of valves and pipes and other tanks that you would, put the waste into before you blew it out to sea directly into the ocean, because it didn't go down into a tank beneath it. They just discharged it right into the ocean. This actually required a trained engineer before you could actually flush the head on a German U-boat, which actually somewhat resulted in the sinking of one particular German U-boat in World War II. So the captain apparently did his thing and he realized like, oh, I don't know how to use the head or how to flush it. So intelligently, he called over the engineer, said, all right, I need to flush this thing, okay. But the engineer screwed up and he opened the valves in the wrong sequence or something, and boom, all of a sudden you got this sewage flowing back out of the head and into the submarine here and all that. So they quickly closed it, but they were taking on water and it got down into the batteries beneath them. And it's like, well, we could have a battery explosion, we can have some chlorine gas coming up. So they had to surface that U-boat. And once they surfaced, they were spotted by an Allied patrol aircraft, which proceeded to start attacking them. And that is what ultimately sank the submarine. So, yeah, that's an old story, but a goldie. But yes, let it be known that the Germans had a problem with their heads on their U-boats, one of which actually somewhat indirectly led to the sinking of the submarine. That's what happened. Anyway, so I believe modern Virginia-class submarines, I've been told, one of the tour guides we have served on the South Dakota. He said that a Virginia-class submarine does not use toilets like these. They use vacuum toilets. much like the ones you would find on aircraft. So the waste goes down into like a vacuum chamber beneath it, then it gets transferred into a sanitary tank after that, then discharged overboard. So the chances that you're going to blow a fountain of water of sewage back into the head doesn't really happen anymore. So, but that is the story of, modern day submarines. Now, another story I could tell you about, using a toilet incorrectly on a submarine is on one submarine, apparently it kept happening. So the captain made an honorary toilet seat just like this for the latest sailor who had committed the faux pas of blowing sewage back into the head for him to wear around his neck. And he would be stuck wearing that thing until the next sailor committed the faux pas. Then that toilet seat transferred to that sailor. Yes, sailors have a very odd, kind of dark sense of humor, but that's what it takes to survive on a submarine. The sailors referred to this as quote-unquote getting shit-canned by the captain. So, that's a little bit about using the head on a submarine, folks. A bunch of lovely stories, yep. Alright, now as a quick addendum to this video, for those of you who are still around and still listening, I'm going to tell another little story about this particular head, this particular toilet on the submarine. So, on one tour a little while ago, someone actually used this head. Now, of course, they weren't able to flush it or open up the valve at the bottom because it doesn't work anymore, but someone basically took a dump in that toilet. So we get a call over the radio, we have to call facilities, they have to come down and clean out the toilet. It's like, well, make sure you bring the gloves and all that and all the, the disinfectant wipes and stuff. So, because someone literally dropped a deuce in the toilet. And that's kind of the thing. We don't know exactly who this was, but we speculate it may have been like a little kid, like a 3-year-old or something, who maybe walked underneath the chain and sat on that toilet. Now, this kind of gets into a whole nother discussion about the appropriateness of letting little kids onto this submarine, especially even on tours, but that's the thing, like, this is a museum ship. It doesn't work anymore, more or less. Some of the equipment does, but the toilets don't work anymore. So, yeah, you can't use a bathroom on this submarine. You have to use it up in the building. And even then, we do have a porta potty down on the dock, which was not always there, particularly during the non-summer season. We actually had to sign a petition to get a porta potty down onto the dock next to the submarine for like the fall, winter, and spring. Before that, if we had to use the bathroom during those seasons, we had to literally basically plan out 10 minutes to walk up the ramp, go into the building, and use the bathroom in there. But anyway, so case in point, folks, before you come on a tour, make sure you and your kids use the bathroom before you do, because there's no working toilet on the submarine. Now, regarding that particular incident, our lead tour guide said, well, in the 20-some years he's been working here, he says that's the first and hopefully last time that will ever happen. But yeah, it was kind of gross. But I mean, we do occasionally have other spills of bodily fluids, including urine and vomit and all that other stuff. But that's the first time anyone's ever crapped in that head. And another thing is we tour guides have somewhat jokingly debated, like, well, we should reactivate one of the heads in the sanitary tanks, probably in the officer's head so we could use it. But then that deals with the issue of, well, you're going to have to make sure that tank is still watertight. It's not going to leak or discharge into the river or whatever. Plus, we need to get someone down here to pump it every so often, and clean it and inspect it and all that. And that's cost money and it's going to be a big hassle. So, yeah, we'll just settle for, a porta potty that's serviced every week or so, every so often. That's the thing, it may be a museum ship. It may have had people serving on it for 31 years, but not all the amenities work on this thing. So, parents, kids, use the bathroom and do your business before you come down for a tour.